It is a very good morning and welcome to Sly Media TV. Welcome to this episode of Economic Pulse. My name is Prof. And like always, we bring you this program where we look at how the economy is performing. We promised as we started this program that we're going to be giving you a series, or we're going to be serializing this program where we are looking at issues as they happen. We want to see the reaction. We want to see what solutions we can bring to how the economy is reacting to policy pronouncements, to developments that are happening in the economy. And like always, I have on the show Professor Gift Mugano. He is a professor of economics, and he is also the executive director of Africa Economic Development Strategies and author of several books and journals that deal with the question on economics. Welcome to the program and welcome to Sly Media TV.
Thank you very much for having me.
So before we go into what we are going to be discussing today, we are going to be focusing on looking back the first 6 months of the year, the first half of the year. How did we perform as an economy? Where did we go wrong? What should we have done to make sure that we fix the things that are not going on well in the economy? And after that, we're going also to cast our eyes in the second half of the year, second 6 months of the year, and look at the prospects. Where are we going as a country? We are going to take a short break. When we return, we are going straight.
Big businesses do not advertise because they are big. They advertise because they want to reach potential new customers. Advertising helps you move your goods off the shelves. Brand visibility engraves your brand in the hearts and minds of your old and new customers. Sly Media TV has a package for everyone, big or small. It's called Everyone Can Stream. Corporate events, weddings, churches or funerals, we stream it all. We take your product and event to over 326,000 followers on Facebook and 96,000 subscribers on YouTube. We cross-post to over 6 pages with a reach of over 1 million followers from as little as $100 per hour. We give you the desired global reach. Call today for a free quotation. 263-772-863-484 or 263-775-964-849 or 263-773-761-800 or email on slymediastreaming@gmail.com. Sly Media TV, building bridges.
Welcome back to Sly Media TV and welcome back to this program, Economic Pulse. As I always say, that we check the pulse of the economy to say how is the heartbeat of the economy. And let me welcome you, our viewers, those that are watching. You can go ahead and invite others to watch and also to send through your questions, your comments, your contributions to the program or to the topic that we are discussing today, where we are looking at the first 6 months of the year and say, what is it that happened during the first 6 months of the year with regards to economic performance. And as I said that I have Professor Mugano. Professor Mugano, let's start straight from how you would characterize the performance of the economy in the first 6 months of the year.
Thank you very much. I think one would be quite fair to say the first half of the year was chaotic. It was a very bad period. I think for the viewers and the listeners, they would want to understand the figures for us to qualify what we're talking about. So when we ended the year, at the beginning of the year, inflation was just around 60% annual inflation. And our government was quite optimistic that by the end of the year, inflation will end at 25 to 30%. Now as we are speaking, we are talking of 200%. Inflation, if we round it up, 192%. So we are off the target by far, and there's no indication that we will hit our target. Of course, we'll go back to that discussion later on. So we are doing badly. Workers are suffering. Obviously, when you have inflation, workers are suffering because of serious erosion of wages. Their money is now meaningless. Business is suffering because inflation erodes capital. Now, the other menace is the exchange rate spiral, which I've noticed this first half of the year. We started the year at a rate of below $120 against $1 US official exchange rate. Now official exchange rate is $375, 3 times higher than it was when we began the year. But you understand that the budget by the Minister of Finance, one of the key assumptions for the economic trajectory which we were paving for this year was to have a stable exchange rate. And it was quite a strong assumption because it would then also put everything in the same direction. The budget will be performing better, incomes will be performing well. So the exchange rate is not stable. It's running away and it's not turning back.
Yeah.
The other menace also which you are facing in the economy, issue of decay of social services, your health. Because sometimes we talk of economics, but we forget economics covers also social services like health and education. These sectors are in doldrums. Why? Because they are at the receiving end of the economic ills. So this is the picture I am giving. When you go to hospitals, there's no medicine, there's no supporting infrastructure and utilities which are required. Basic stationery is not there in hospitals. Basic drugs. You know, if you interact with the hospitals very closely, if you are a practical professional, you come across a situation where you see women who are coming to give birth, coming to register, being requested to buy basic requirements which should be provided by the hospitals, like your notebook, salt, very basic things which should not be requested from a patient, a Zimbabwean, where health is a constitutional right. And if you don't provide that, you're not registered. So that's how bad it is. So this first year in brief is chaotic. This has been a very painful period. It was characterized from policy making by several press statements, several policy pronouncements, which again, in my view, which we'll go into detail, whether good is adding poison to a sick patient. So there's no clarity of policy, I think from a policy point of view, because clarity can be given and guaranteed when you pronounce something and you stand with it. You give clarity to people. But if you pronounce a statement today and in 10 days you reverse it, or within a week you reverse it, you are creating what you call policy uncertainty. So you create a situation where the market watchers and the players will become so confused. I think one of the profound statements which has been said by Winston Churchill was that if you legislate 10,000 legislations or regulations, you are creating lawlessness. And this is what is happening here. We are seeing now lawlessness where everyone is no longer respecting the laws, which are standing rules, which we'll go into detail later on, because there's no clarity, there's no policy direction, there's no policy predictability and certainty. So we are in a state where it's a mist. You don't know where we're going. We are lost somewhere. And we are looking for someone to save us.
Someone to save us. We are going to deal with that question, whether we're looking for someone or we're looking for something to save us. And you speak of inflation, that at the beginning of the year, the figures were very low, and now it has gone to close to 200%. Now, what would you say, for the benefit of our viewers as well, are the drivers of this inflation as it stands?
Right. So the major driver of inflation is money supply. Then the second one, we can then categorize them as cost push factors. I want to look at those two factors. the money supply has been one of the major drivers. And I'm happy that yesterday, I think it's yesterday, the governor of Central Bank was speaking to Parliament. And he was quite right to say government program, the procurement system of government must be looked at. Remember last time when we came here, first show,
Yes.
we talked about the role of Minister of Finance funding infrastructure, building roads, dams, using cash.
Yeah.
And I gave figures that 45% of the total budget is going towards construction work and the agricultural subsidies. So we are talking about close to 450 billion RTGS before this budget burst. But in history, when we looked at the budget of the Minister of Finance from 2019 to date, agriculture and construction-related votes raised the budget by more than 100%. So I guaranteed that even as we speak right now, they could have spent over 450 billion. The possibility is very high. And that money is going to the market. So when it goes to the market, you are paid as farmers of cotton farmers by government because of also lack of confidence in the market. Farmers run to buy US dollars. Contractors, once they are paid, they run to buy US dollars. And when you buy that US dollar, the rate goes up. So you now have what we call exchange rate induced inflation. But what we need to understand is that exchange rate has been caused by money supply. But also on the other side, excessive money which is coming to the market through this construction work. Some don't buy foreign currency, they buy properties. That's why you can't buy a house today. They're very expensive because you just put your money into the housing to save your money, and some buy stocks. So again, when you are buying, you can think of the war veteran package time, that when you put more money in the market, the price also goes up because of high demand. So that is the one side which government must pay attention to. And we have been saying this, I think now for more than 3 years, religiously, I think every month. But I think we are missing each other somewhere. I don't know how we are missing each other. Even on one-on-one discussions, I had that privilege. I remember I referred to the Victoria Falls pre-budget consultation, which was held in November. I think Parliament of Zimbabwe did a very good thing. They called me there. I was discussing with the Minister of Finance and the Governor of Central Bank presentation, and I put this together. I did not see refusal from the two. But I don't know why they can't then realize that we should find a new formula of funding road and construction. So I was talking about money supply. The second factor is cost push. So we are talking about cost of business, of running a business. Wage spirals. Because wages are being adjusted regularly. But when they are adjusted, they are factored into the production cost. Then the consumer will pay through higher prices. That's number one. Even on government side as well. It's been the same thing. They've been adjusting wages, but also to say that the cost of fuel has been a menace. I'm sure viewers know that inflation, the price of fuel was around $130 a liter at the beginning of the year. Right now we're talking about $1.88 a liter, which could have gone even to $2 as government is saying that they've had to forfeit some of the levies. But let's just talk about 188. Fuel is a very, very critical driver of inflation because of its role in the value chain. And in some cases, products which has got a long value chain, which start from, say, the farm, it goes to the milling, it goes to the baking, it finds itself in the shop like bread. They will suffer higher cost because at each point you use fuel in terms of distribution and also production.
There is an added cost.
It's even worse when you're using generators, when power is going on. So those are major drivers. But then the last one now, which is going to be, I think the Reserve Bank has also been increasing interest rates. That also could affect it because it's a cost of money. So when you look at the costing model of any business, they also put into account the cost of money. Taxes, that's my last point. Just imagine what the 4% tax will do on the costing model. Don't look at 4% as 4%. You remember the 4% tax on transaction in US dollars?
Yes.
So if you are starting again from the value chain, if you go through the value chain, the cumulative effect of that 4% might be 40%. It depends on how long the value chain is.
Yeah.
The same applies with the 2%, which has been there since the start of this second dispensation. It is a thorn in the flesh. That's why you see that when the Minister of Finance was inaugurated, I think that was in August 2018, annual inflation was 5%. But we have seen inflation reaching 837.5% in July 2020. One of that driver are taxes over and above other factors we have talked about, like money supply. So if you continue to leave those higher taxes, particularly those which have got a cumulative effect, if it is per year, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if it is a 2% per transaction, like when I send money to my mother, $100 through EcoCash, I pay $4. When she withdraw, she pays $4. The two of us have been paying $8. So if I'm running a business, I have to factor that there can be an effect of double taxation, but I have to count that effect into account.
Yeah, yeah.
So government need to look at these things holistically. We are outside government. So sometimes we try to see imagination, what could be the issue. But the government, because they have the numbers, central bankers with figures, they should then do some simulation to really see where we're losing it. Because sometimes we prescribe measures which are not addressing this specific cause.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because I have not seen any measure which is addressing money supply from government side.
I actually want us to discuss or to deal with the measures that government has been putting in place in our next question. But before we go there, I want to find out, Minister Mthuli Ncube has said or is on record saying that zvinhu zvakarongeka. And here you are telling us otherwise. Who are we to believe here?
I think we need to really define zvakarongeka. Maybe we are missing each other on the definition.
Yeah.
Because zvinhu hazvina kurongeka. I think the president has been very consistent that we are in a crisis.
Yeah.
I think if you listen to him when he's speaking on various platforms,
Yes.
he recognized that there's a crisis. And he says that we are going to announce measures to deal with this crisis, to stabilize. I think that's as far as we can qualify what is happening in this country from the citizen number one. But clearly, take out the president in this equation.
Yeah.
The economy should not be, we should not defend the economy to say, I should take my position to defend. So this is what I'm seeing. The Minister of Finance sit where you are and begin to defend. That is what I'm seeing. We should talk to citizens and say, what are you seeing? Citizens, when they go to the shops, they can't buy. Workers are earning, civil servants, the majority of their money in Zimbabwean dollars, but the shops, and largely the informal sector where people are buying, they don't want to see RTGS. RTGS has remained irrelevant in this market in the short term because of the transaction effect. It is still wanted for balancing the transaction, change, convenience, where you want. But the real business, say when we speak of money to say I've sold today, you can't go home and say as an informal player, I've sold so much RTGS. No one will look at you seriously. So that's how far we've lost it. Remember when we met first time, we were talking about the re-dollarization in June. And now what are you seeing? You are seeing the market, the shops saying strictly US dollars. But the workers are earning Zimbabwean dollars. Those workers, do you think they believe with the Minister of Finance? Now, let me get out of Zimbabwe. Let me go to the foreign embassies. Do you think our diplomats, our Zimbabweans who are representing Zimbabwe in the foreign mission who agree with the Minister of Finance when they've gone for 6 months without any salary? These are the facts. Those who have been gone for 3 months are very lucky. Can we say, they say everything is okay? Poverty has risen from 29% in 2018 when he got into office Today we are talking of people in extreme poverty, really, at 49%. This is not from Mugano facts, it's from Zimbabwean. Right?
Yeah.
When people are in extreme poverty, it's gone up to, we are talking about a population of 4.4 million people who were in extreme poverty in 2018. Now we have 7.9 million people, half of the population in extreme poverty. If I was government, I would not sleep. I would not sleep because those people are dangerous. Those people are a recipe for disaster because when people are in poverty, you have serious social and security threats. So my job is to attend to those people to say, what can I do to reverse that? Go to the education. People are tired of talking now about education. If you don't have money to pay for extra lessons for your kid, that kid is not going to school. Yeah. It's given. If you don't have money to go and seek medical aid, medical services, you die. You are guaranteed. So we can't say Zvakarongeka when you look at those. These are the facts. You can't say Zvakarongeka. Inflation is rising from 60% by end of year, by January, to almost 200%. And I can tell you that by end of July, we'll be talking of 240%. Professor Stephen Heng, he used purchasing power parity and the exchange rate estimation of inflation. Yeah. We are at around 400 when you look at how the rate has been going up. That is still a good indicator of inflation because those who are using replacement pricing, you know, companies, they don't use this official exchange rate, official in inflation. They use what we call replacement pricing. You price in a manner that helps you to replace the stock. So you look at how the rate has been performing. They don't look at inflation. So that 400% is a good factor. That's why you see how the prices are going up. In some areas, it's quite massive and very steep. So I think, my last point, I want to persuade the Minister of Finance and his team to accept that the things are not working. Because the challenge in life is that if you don't accept, you don't start to put a solution to address that. If you accept that you are sick today, you seek medical attention. Yeah. But if you say, I'm not sick, why would you go to a medical doctor? So it's a fact of life. That's why in English they say, if you admit that you have a problem, you have a solution. Because that admission helps you to begin to take necessary steps to address that. Yeah.
We have seen quite a number of measures that the government has taken since beginning of the year or even a previous year. Statutory instruments, policy pronouncements have been made with to try and deal with these ills that we see in the economy. And still you have a feeling, or reading from what you're saying that these are not working.
Correct. Yeah. The measures are not working. There are a number of them. I think the challenge is that, remember last time when I came here, we talked about this analogy of a medical doctor. I also want to add the analogy of the lawyers, the legal practitioners. The medical doctors, they do proper diagnostic of the problems which you have, and they don't do experiments with your life. Imagine if doctors were doing what the Minister of Finance would be doing. This country would be dead. They've killed the whole nation because you're experimenting with us. Doctors don't experiment.
But Prof, are you saying that when these policy pronouncements are made, there is no diagnostic of the problem?
There's no diagnostic, I presume, because if you give me a wrong prescription, for example, suspending lending, which diagnostic will give you that prescription? In that is a sign that there's no diagnostic, because you suspend lending in the banking sector, which at that point which has lent out $250 billion. But there's a government department, Minister of Finance, which is issuing $450 billion alone into construction. Where should you close the tap? Do you close the tap where there's $250 billion in the private sector? Or do you close the tap where there's $450 billion going to build road with using cash? So if you diagnose, you understand. That's why you can see now the governor of Central Bank is now saying government must really work on their procurement. And he is right because he's the advisor to government. Are you with me? So if you diagnose, you see it. Is that these are so there's no way you can suspend lending if you have done your proper diagnostic. There's no way where Minister of Finance will call you to a meeting and tell you that we are allocating wheat and maize. Is he Minister of Agriculture? Is he Minister of Social Welfare? He's the Minister of Finance. Where is that kind of diagnostic which Minister of Finance will talk about allocation of wheat? The last press conference which he held. So lawyers likewise, when you go to lawyers with their case, they look at your case, they look at the laws which are available which can deal with their case, they look at the precedents, they will tell you from the word go that this case, you lose it. This case, you win it. And a good lawyer will tell you the truth. But that's what they were also trained as economists. But I think economists is overtaken by politics. To an extent that even the Minister of Finance is a decorated professor of economics. He's failing to do the basics. That's why...
Are you saying that his hands are tied?
I think
by politics?
No, I can only speculate. But I think he can qualify that. But I don't think he's down. He's very intelligent. He's very educated. He, in terms of education and qualification and experience, he's got everything. But it worries me why he can't apply his... Imagine he's holding all those weapons of mass destruction which he can destroy this whole poverty. But it's being we are being destroyed by poverty every day. So I think there's a challenge somewhere which a naked eye cannot see. But at the bottom line is that the policy measures which have been announced, all of them, have not targeted the real issues. I have told you the real challenge in this country which is causing currency crisis is money supply. The second one are cost push factors.
Yes.
And the elements under the cost push factors is fuel and taxes and interest rates. Those are given things.
Yeah.
And no one, even if the Minister of Finance comes here, he can't deny that. He can't, because the facts are there.
Yeah.
So we should then have measures dealing with those issues. We should have seen government rationalizing taxes, removing some of the taxes. Even on fuel, there's still a quite higher level of duty which we are paying on fuel of 30%. At this stage, government must knock it down, even 10%. They should do sensitivity analysis to see what will 10% do to revenue. We can still make more revenue if you reduce fuel tax to 10% because you will be taxing an elephant. So 10% of an elephant is better than 100% of a rat. So there will be more consumption in the economy, more economic activities, they'll still get their money. But even if you lose, the economy benefit. Because you cannot sustain a fuel cost of $1.88 if you want to address inflation.
Yeah.
So we have not get to a point where there's proper pragmatism, there's a proper analysis, and when the Minister of Finance speaks, we should say, yes, here we are. We are going in the right direction, but we have not seen that. We have seen the opposite. When he speaks, the market will just say, we are not listening to you.
You have touched on this one, but I wanted to deal with it in detail, where we saw the Minister of Finance himself pronouncing a statutory instrument 118A that deals with maize, wheat, the one that you just referred to. Do you think that, as pronounced, that statutory instrument is going to stabilize the economy?
I think the Minister of Finance, the right way to answer your question, the Minister of Finance, before he legislated the statutory instrument 118A, which put the use of US dollars into law and compels the people to use the interbank market, he was supposed to review, that's why the question of diagnosing becomes very critical. He was supposed to review the effect or the impact of the statutory instrument 127. Those two statutory instruments are similar. 127 was legalizing the use of auction rate.
Yes.
Auction rate because shops were seen to be using their own retail rate because they were making losses on using the official rate. So they wanted to legalize, and there were penalties in statutory instrument 127. that if you flout it, you can go behind bars and pay so much amount of money, even as a person, as a director.
Yeah.
Now, because the president announced on 7 May that we must now use the interbank rate, it then put the statutory instrument 127 into nullity.
Yeah.
It means the statutory instrument 127 was no longer relevant. And also what we hear when talking to lawyers, it also had expired. It was supposed to be 6 months. Now, so it is the same statutory instrument, but now making reference to interbank market, because 127 was referring to auction rate. Because now we are using the interbank market rate.
Yeah.
So the question was, he was supposed to ask himself to say, did the statutory instrument 127 work? Worked? Why did it fail? Because insanity is repeating the same thing over and over to solve the same problem. You need to change the way you are solving your problems. Are you with me?
Yeah.
I said it when the legislature did it. I said, you don't legislate exchange rates. There's nowhere in the market in the world where an exchange rate was ever legislated and worked. You can't use command exchange rate. You're commanding the exchange rate. The exchange rate has to be market determined, so that the market speaks to the rate of the day. You can't use the laws to push on exchange rates. And I said, even if they want to use the laws, maybe they say we have an exceptional situation. Whom are we enforcing the law on? Formal sector, which is 20% of the economy. How are we going to push the same exchange rate to the informal sector, which is 80%? Because that's where the deal is.
Yeah.
We have, at that point when the World Bank did a study about the total people in the informal sector in 2012, there were 5.7 million people.
Yeah.
And now it's 10 years down the line. You can only be guaranteed we are above 5.7 million people because things have gone worse. So assuming there are 7 million people in the informal sector, how do you arrest 7.7 million people? Where are the jails? So when you put in law, you must understand that this legal framework is really going to work. But there's also moral suasion, which says that from the school of wisdom, even look at legal systems, that when a system becomes common and it becomes a common practice, naturally it becomes more like it's now a new law, because the law is for the people. But if the people have created their own systems, it has become kind of a new legality. That is why you see yesterday and the previous days we were seeing stickers in the shops saying strictly US dollars on certain commodities.
What was the reaction? What was that reaction to? That we see shops in the morning, they are displaying the US dollar
shops
prices.
are like the puppies, when you growing up in the rural areas, these little dogs, the puppies. When it is barking, don't fight the puppy. Because behind the puppy there's the father and the mother who come and bite you. So I'm looking at the value chain. Shops are just the mirror which we see at the end of the day. But the issue is not in the shops. If I want to be very honest with you, and also the government, the issue is in the whole value chain. That the value chain is saying, we cannot get money from central bank, from the auction platform. Even if we get that money, it takes time to be released, right? We're here 4 or 5 months. So they've made decisions to use their own foreign currency to buy these things. And they need replacement. So directors have got a fiduciary roles to defend money and assets of companies. And the government must understand that when you want to arrest directors, they have a fiduciary role that they must defend money. So when you're defending your money, what do? You price in the currency which is working. So these shops are being given these goods in US dollars. From the back, when they look at the backwards in the value chain. And clearly, if I get them in US dollars, how do I sell them in Zimbabwean dollars? And the manufacturer also gets raw materials and every supply in US dollars. So government has to make a choice. Do you want to enforce the law and have shortages? That's a choice for government. And if you have shortages, how do you replace the shops? So we need to look at this from a practical point of view, and that is the real answer to the ineffectiveness of the statutory instrument 118A of 2022.
Okay, when we come back from a short break, we are going to be dealing with the issue of gold coins, a store of value, money supply, and a whole lot of other things with regards to how the economy is performing. We are going to take a short break. Stay tuned. With 2023 beckoning and the election frenzy in the country becoming more stronger each day, politicians are increasingly becoming visible, making more and more promises.
Primary education from grade 1 to grade 7 must be provided completely free.
Every village, in 3 years, there will be a ball in Orana solar.
patinongopinda tunhu chekutanga kukudzorerai pamakasiyiwa navamugabe toda kudzorera maticha kwavaiva kwokuti ticha aizikanwa semunhu aitenga zikoti zihedmaster nenyaya yokuti anga ane udzamu nejikiniki.
But are these promises going to be fulfilled? The electorate is pondering on who to vote for in the council, parliamentary, and even presidential election. We bring you the candidate, where we interrogate their plans, their manifestos, their programs, to make sure that we give you information to make a choice on who to vote for. The candidate on Sly Media TV every Wednesday from 6 p.m. Welcome back to Economic Pulse, and welcome back to Sly Media TV. This is a program that looks at the performance of the economy. And like always, we have in the studio Professor Mugano. He's a professor of economics, and he is an author of several books that deal with economics, and also journals and papers that touch on different topics with regards to economies and economics. When we went for a short break, we were dealing with the statutory instrument 118A, and to say, is it going to work? And Professor Mugano was telling us that what we needed to do was to look at the previous statutory instrument and make a proper review of that to say, did it work? If it did not, what were the issues? Why should we have another statutory instrument that is almost similar to that one? But let's move on to look at the RBZ. We understand that the RBZ raised interest rates to 200%. What would you say are the implications of that?
Thank you very much. So, interest rate rise also become part of the cost push factors on inflation. But maybe before I look at that, maybe the rationale people want to know. The rationale is to reduce speculative borrowing and reduce money going to the black market to buy foreign currency. It makes sense. It makes sense because
it's one of the measures that is being put in place.
Central bank, it makes sense, but it's not an issue of debate of its effectiveness now. It makes sense because there are some people who are borrowing money to go and buy foreign currency. It was happening. But I still want to put a caveat to it. To say that what central bank also need to look at is that out of the total money which were borrowed, according to central bank official figures, which are produced, reported in the Monetary Policy Review report, 76% rather, was going to productive lending. So it's very difficult to then say the money which was going to productive lending was going to buy foreign currency. Yes, there are one or two crooks which can mislead that they are borrowing for production, but one will be tempted to think that it's going to production. 20% was going to household consumers. So that is the category. And when you say 20%, we're talking about $50 billion. Because $190 billion was going to productive. Then $50 billion was going to consumptive. Then 4% was for other lending. But you can't say that if I borrow money as a consumer, I'm going to buy foreign currency. Because people can buy money to finish their house, It's production still, but it's under consumption. It's being borrowed by a consumer. People can borrow money to pay school fees. So again, you can't say it's going to black market. So even in that 20% where this 200% is targeting, it's not 100% of 20% of the money or 100% of the $50 billion which is going to black market. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So the effectiveness of the 200% increase in interest rate will be undermined by the fact that you see that the majority of the money which is in the private sector is going to production. I think the V11 came out when they suspended lending, where companies were saying, look, we can't give you like credit facilities. It was speaking to how this money is being used. But now the major challenge for me, for central bank, and this for Governor Dr. Manguja, is that he has pegged interest rate at 200%. And it clearly is going to cause what we call cost push inflation. Because companies which are going to borrow that money have to factor it into production.
Yeah.
But remember, with 49% of people in extreme poverty, what are we doing to these people? Remember, companies used to pass the cost to the consumers, depending on the responsiveness of that price. What we call elasticity in economics. To say, if I charge my price, give you a higher price, can you absorb it? If a consumer cannot absorb it, companies also take a knock. So it is a shared cost, which means companies are also getting broke. So can we sustain this? That's the first question. The second question is that, which is the last question. Is central bank prepared to go on a marathon with inflation and their interest rates? Now we are saying it's 200%, right? It's 192% inflation. Interest rate is what? It's 200%. Are they saying if inflation goes to 140% end of July, as we are predicting, they are going to put the interest rate to 250%? And if it goes to 300% inflation, are they putting it to 400% or whatever?
400,
Because remember, this is a new vicious cycle they've created, because interest rates are a cost push factor to inflation. So you are adding more cost, you are adding more fuel to inflation. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think the hike in interest will help to address inflation and also the rates. That's why you see the rates have not gone down. They've continued to go up since it was introduced. Why? Because the 200% does not address government budget, which I talked about, where government is pumping money in the black market through funding of construction work and agricultural commodities. So its effectiveness is quite insignificant.
That's what we wait to see. From what you're saying,
there's nothing to wait to see. Already the rate has been running away. If the 200% was effective, the rate was supposed to be stabilizing. The rate is now around 800. When it was introduced, the rate was around 600. So you don't have to wait. The results are there.
Another pronouncement, another measure, the introduction of gold coins in the economy. Let's look at that and say, do you think these are effective?
Gold coins works in a formal market. Because when you talk of gold coins, you are talking about an investment asset which you can invest into. Because gold coins, where I understand them, maybe for viewers, these are minted coins with 90 to 98% of gold. So we are holding gold. And they are like stocks. When you go and buy shares, you want to get a return on investment when the price appreciates. So if you go into investments, there's one assumption which must be very valid. You must have surplus cash. When we learned economics, we were told that when you get your income, you consume part of the income and you save part of the income. So your savings are identical to investments. They are not equal, they are identical. It's match to match. So you need to have savings for you to buy, to go to do investments. So if you are going to invest in gold coins, you must have savings. So we have two groups of people here. We have the corporates and the individuals. So let's look at the households, the individuals. The households are in extreme poverty. when I say extreme poverty, I'm talking about people living on less than $1.90 US dollars, $1.90 a day. And you can even go to bed without eating. So you have 7.9 million people in extreme poverty. But when we talk of people in poverty, not extreme poverty, we are talking of around 70% of the population. You are in poverty. You are not in extreme, but you're in poverty. You live on $2 to $3 a day. So those people, can they buy gold? These gold coins are coming in a tray per ounce. And when you look at the global price of gold per ounce, it's $1,800. Who, you and me, the two of us, let's not look at outside. Do you have $1,800 in your pocket? I know you don't say no because you want to save your pride. But if God can come down and tell us, no one in this room has got that money. So the governor was also again in parliament speaking about gold coins. And was saying he wants to give people an alternative to buy gold to preserve their RTGS instead of going to the black market. But the people he's talking about are poor. Those who are buying US dollars are you and me who are working, and I just want to buy 30 US dollars if I can afford. And that is very convenient to me as compared to gold coin, because I need $1.8 thousand to buy a tray, and they put it in central bank and they pay custodian service again. No, not central bank, in my bank. But also understand that when you look at the regulations, the rules, there should be know your customer if you are buying gold coins. Now we have 80% of the population, the informal sector, which is not banked. So that's where dollarization is taking place. Those are the people who are spending the money every day. So how do you think gold coins will be effective in discouraging those people in the informal sector to buy gold? Buying gold to preserve value when they are not banked, they are not part of the banking channel, and they have no confidence in the banking sector again. So I'm trying to be very, very practical as an outsider who has no baggage of trying to please a particular office, but who likes to just speak truth to the power. Are you with me? So I was talking about the first category of people who are out of the gold coin market. But before I look at the corporates, there's one point I had forgotten. Now, imagine that for some reason, miraculously, a poor lady buys gold coins worth 1.8, whatever price. Now, this lady, 3 days down the line, wants the money to buy medicine, $5. Unorimedura say gold coin nacho unotenga mishonga wa $5. Iyo rakasungirwa pa 1.8 room bank. But if I'm holding my $100 US, my $20 US, I'll just change my $20 US. So convenience comes into play. So gold coin does not bring convenience to the generality of the population if I want to do small transactions. So clearly, that's where it fails to address it, even if it's an attractive instrument which you can use to deal with the investments. Then the corporate side, yes, there are some companies, I think the top 100, which has got excess cash. Those ones, those who are afraid of going to the black market can buy the gold coin and keep it as an investment. But the question now is that how big they are and what is their influence on the black market. That's an empirical question. I'm sure the governor can then give us more. But my last comment before we come in, my last point is that there is the danger above all is the issue of arbitrage. Because the rate of the interbank rate, which is being referred for transaction of the gold coins, is 50% of the black market. In actual sense, the black market rate is 2 times the official rate. So there's a new pot for arbitrage. And you know, in economics, there's no what we call economic patriotism. The moment there's an avenue for people to buy gold using a lower rate,
and sell it,
they will sell it and get US dollars. They use RTGS using official rate. When they sell it in US dollars, they're getting double. Then they change the US dollars to RTGS. They go and buy 2 trays. When initially they bought what? 1 tray. Are you with me? So we have seen, as long as, and this is for the governor and his team, as long as the black market rate and the official market rate is not converging, of course, there's nothing called convergence. There should be a small disparity of 10 to 15% of the exchange rates, which will then discourage you from going where there will be transaction cost, which will discourage you. As long as there's 100% disparity, even if all of us were rich to buy gold coins, gold coins were still going to fail because we're going to have a casino economy happening now on the gold coins. And this is a fact.
The governor, when he was in parliament, he spoke about, he actually said that we killed our economy by dollarizing, introducing the US dollar in 2009. What will be your reaction to that? Do you think that that is factual, that is correct?
That is correct. Why I'm saying so that even if, I think that's where people don't understand me.
Yeah.
They think I like dollarization. I think I also have to clear myself.
Yeah.
When you speak as a prophet that someone's going to die, you don't like death. You're only saying what you are saying in the spirit. That's why the prophet said, let's pray. People still die. So dollarization is not a good thing. Because once it comes, the disadvantage of dollarization is that you have a high cost profile. You can't export.
Yeah.
The economy will contract because people have mistaken during the unit government that the economy was growing by 10%.
Yeah.
It was growing by 10%. It was more like rapid because we're coming from zero. We had already lost everything. We were at zero. We're coming from negative. So it was incremental gains which were coming out, but which were not quite, we had a very small economy. But now because our economy is already dollarized, so we have now a big economy. If we go for full dollarization right now, we have serious liquidity challenges. We have cash flow challenges because the four sources of dollar will be exports, which are doing well now. It will be FDI, which is not doing very well because we get 1% of GDP of FDI, foreign direct investments. We get about $250 million. But in terms of cash, you get about $40 million every year. If you look at central bank's reports, it's sometimes $20 million. So that's the liquidity which we want. So talk of 20 million from investments. We need the diaspora remittances, which are doing very well. We need the loans, which we can't get because we owe the whole world. So to finance now this whole currency regime, we can't print US dollars. Those were the disasters. So I always speak to people and say, when we talk of dollarization, think of death. It's death. It's inevitable. If you drive when you are drunk, you can die. So the challenge now, when you listen to the governor and the Minister of Finance, they defend it as if we are campaigning for it. No, you don't need to defend against dollarization. You just need to do the right things. You need to do policies which avoid currency crisis. Because when you get into currency crisis, you dollarize. Even if you talk to businesses, they will tell you that dollarization is not the right way to go. But which business or which employee in his or her right sense would want Zimbabwean dollars when you know that tomorrow it will be useless? You know, I was in Zambia in November last year, practically on the ground.
So how do we deal with this? Because what you are saying, I'm looking at a common man on the street. When you talk to them about Zim dollar or RTGS, no one wants to really
yes,
have that.
They don't want it, but Zambians want their currency. I was talking about Zambia. Why do Zambians want their currency? Do you know the kwacha now and the rand is, the kwacha just 3 days ago, it was stronger than the rand.
The rand,
Very strong currency, good performing currency. There's certainty, there's predictability. You can keep it as a store of value. If money can't be a store of value, it can't be a medium of exchange, which is the second function of money. So Zimbabweans don't want to hear Zimbabwean dollar because it is associated with extreme poverty. You don't want poverty. So what the government has to do is to make sure that our currency is stable. You don't campaign for currency. The currency must campaign for itself. How does it campaign? It must store value. It must not lose value. Then I accept it as a medium of what? Of exchange.
From everything that you have said, Professor, it looks like we are going nowhere. It's gloomy all over. The measures the government has taken, the statutory instruments introduced, all don't seem to be working. And I want to find out from you to say, are you saying to us now there is no silver lining?
Just to correct you, we are not going nowhere. We are going somewhere.
Where are we going?
We are going to the graves.
Oh.
That's where we are going with the economy.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is given. We are going to the graves.
Okay. So how do we make a U-turn?
The only silver lining right now is to dollarize.
But you just said the dollarization is not
It's
not
not
good.
a good thing,
Yeah.
but it gives you room to put your house in order. We don't want to dollarize and stay there. We dollarize, we come up with a clear de-dollarization plan where we begin to put in measures which address 6 things. First one, production. Because if our currency is going to come back,
And sorry, Professor, to interject, because this is very important. When you speak about production, earlier you spoke to us about the cost of production when we're using the US dollar.
Correct.
And how then are we going to be able to do that?
So we talk about artificial, or what do you call, devaluation of US dollar. When you talk of artificial devaluation of the US dollar, you dollarize, you come up with a framework, what I call artificial devaluation of the US dollar.
What is that?
When you talk of devaluation in normal economics, you are weakening your currency, right?
Yes.
But in this sense, you have one currency and you have one exchange rate, 1:1. So you begin now to work on your cost of production, your cost base. So in this instance, you have to make sure that your utilities are affordable, they're at a competitive level to avoid businesses from having high cost of utilities. You have to make sure that the wages and salaries, there's high productivity in production, because in wages, it's not about paying workers low. It's about increasing production. So the cost per unit will be lower. So you want now to look at the companies and say, what are the binding constraints sector by sector which are inhibiting a particular sector from being productive? For example, in agriculture, we are getting yields of 1 ton per hectare, when in the region, on average, they're getting 5 tons per hectare. These are the facts. In some cases, for smallholder farmers, they're producing 0.5 tons per hectare. So we are now saying, what are the measures which must be put in place? For example, Fumvudza. Yeah, I'm not a problem with Fumvudza, but Fumvudza has produced 5 tons a hectare. That's a fact. So it's high intensity in terms of inputs on the ground. So when you get 5 tons per hectare, that farmer who has got 5 tons per hectare in terms of labor has got lower labor cost, even if they are paying more workers. Are we together? So the same applies to taxes. Well, how do we rationalize our taxes, simplify them to cut the cost? So that we become competitive during the journey when we are dollarized. So that's what we call internal devaluation. It's called internal devaluation. But we also put measures of enhancing productivity in production. Take away corruption. We are losing about 3 billion every year because of corruption. That money must find itself into the economy. Are we together?
Yeah.
Those are critical things, but they can be dealt with in a rigor way if papers can be done, and we can do those papers. But the government is shy of approaching us. The government is shy of getting papers from us. But when we speak truth to power that we are going to be dollarizing by June, they refuse it. But we are here. So we can go deeper in that.
Yeah.
The second issue, we need to drive our exports. We need to diversify our exports in terms of markets. We need to diversify.
We see a positive now in terms
No,
of...
that's because of the price increase in the global prices. Like gold is 1.8. It has never been there.
Yeah.
It's because of Putin war. You see, because Putin is under sanction and he controls 10% of gold, global gold production. So if you sanction him, it means you are reducing supply of gold in the market. If there's no war in Ukraine,
Russia,
this whole bubble will go away. So we should not then lose focus and think we are doing wonders. It's a temporary gain which we've just got, but it can go away. The real business is to value add our exports, to identify new markets, to increase export in those markets. Our embassies must be marked. You know, in Nigeria, do we have an embassy? Are you aware of that? I've done analysis. I've not seen any export to Nigeria. So what is the ambassador doing there? Why are we having an embassy? Are they doing politics? Are you aware of that? We have an ambassador in Senegal. Have you ever heard that we're exporting to Senegal? Can you tell me one commodity do you take to Senegal? Nothing. So we need economic diplomacy. That's what South Korea did.
And that was the pronouncement by the president, really, when he sent out the ambassadors to say that we want ambassadors who will be sending or attracting investment.
The president spoke.
Yeah.
And he spoke well. You now need the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade to have these ambassadors reporting quarterly on what they are sending back home. That is now implementation.
Okay, I know we are going to, in our next episode, we're going to deal with some of the issues here. I just wanted us to touch on two issues briefly. The first one being that from an economist or a professor of economics point of view, what advice would you give to policymakers as it stands? If we are going to turn around, you said we are going to the grave, but we don't want to go there.
That's a very good question, and I'm sure they listen to this program. In the previous program, I got a lot of feedback from various policymakers. So I will address them in that context. So the first thing is that because we're going to the grave, in fact, I think that's a good starting point because we have a patient who is in intensive care unit, and the doctor have run out of ideas. The doctor being Professor Mugano here in this instance. And we are sitting, and people have now come to a point.
Someone asked me, Prof, that do you have any problems with Professor Mugano?
He is the Minister of Finance. He must be ready for any advice, feedback. I'm his advisor. I advise him for no cent, but he has no clue now. Right. So we're at a stage, it's a very critical stage, where people are sitting down, and the daughter is sitting down, gathering the family, say, who is the eldest here? You know that situation, very sad situation. And I think you need to take this person home. They don't say he must go and die at home. They say you can nurse at home. That's where we are. Okay. At that point, we should be united as a family. So that's Zimbabwe now. We should not look for a witch to say who has done this. Because once you do that, you lose focus on the patient. So I am advising Professor Mugano, because he has already started. On 1 July 2022, he gave duty waiver to importation of oranges and juices. Just yesterday, 10 days down the line, he reversed it. Because he gives reasons. He gives reasons that because you are pricing in US dollars, we are reversing and we are doing investigation. Moments like these are very dangerous. Because I've seen it in government. On 25 June 2007, government set and made announcement that go back to the price of 18 June 2007. Means go back to the price of previous week. And we began to have price controls. So I am advising government not to be emotional when we are in a situation like this. We need to go on a round table. They are established business association, you are CZI, National Chamber of Commerce, you have Chamber of Mines, Agricultural, Labor. This is the time for government to go in an intense dialogue, academic, with everyone who matters in policy making, and they have social contract. Social contract is very clear. This is why we want it now, where you say politicians, they should be in the room. Why politicians? Because they represent a constituency. This is what the president has been trying to do on Pollard, which is a very good thing, but we need to make a reference. But the Pollard is not complete without Triple C. That's a fact. So, and this is very important because we need to have the representation of Triple C in part of that discussion.
So people really then misconstrue you when you talk about Triple C to say, are you really an economist or you are partisan?
That's a good question. So when I talk about saying Triple C must be part of the dialogue, and I'm talking about political dialogue, who told you that an economist cannot comment about the politics? Is Professor Mugano not a politician? Is that an economist? I'm not a politician. But politics and economics are two different sides of the same coin. even in business, when they do their environmental scanning, there's what we call pestelgy. Political, economic, social, cultural, technological, environmental, and governance.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? We are scanning the environment. So that's what we teach students. So when I speak, I am speaking from my heart. And it will be a misnomer and wrong for me to say, surely as an academic, when you do analysis, and you say Pollard, there's only one party in there, the NPF. The other party members who are there are not well, they have less than 2% of the voters. So whom are they representing? Those ones should be sitting in the terraces. When Triple C and
but they represent, they were voted for, were they not?
By who? 2%?
Yeah.
And you leave one who was voted by 47%, whatever percentage.
They've been invited and they don't want to go.
No, the
there.
point is that Zimbabwe is for Zimbabweans. And if I am speaking as an academic, I should be able to be honest to you.
Yeah.
To say that if we want to go into a proper social dialogue, we should have Triple C. And let me summarize this way.
Yeah.
A nation can be summarized as, more like as a family. And imagine in your family, you go to do two different churches. And you disagree because you don't agree on religious. And now, how are you going to unite on working on development of the family if you become so toxic on religious grounds issues, as a family? It means you will not achieve anything, even as a mother and father. So that's the same thing at a national level. And the very, very practical example are the Asian tigers. South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China. Chinese, for example, they had consensus as a people. They believed whatever government tells them. Just like here, talking about gold coins, right? We are saying they will not work. Because even people in the informal sector, if they were united, they would say, we want to support our government. You know what they would do? They would go into groups and raise their money, buy gold. What we call group investments or unit trust, concept of unit trust. But because there is no political cohesion, naturally they will say, who bothers, who cares? That's their thing, let them do. So we aren't united. So it is a fact that whatever, and if I was going to meet President Chamisa, I would tell him the same, to say, you need to talk to President Mnangagwa. If I would meet President Mnangagwa, I would say, you need to talk to President Chamisa, because that is Zimbabwe. Those two are they represent Zimbabwe population in terms of the voters. Because you cannot take over 2 million voters for Chamisa and over 2 million people, voters for President Mnangagwa, and you say there's no value of dialogue. No, that's a lie. And people will be speaking from emotions. That's why some of us, when we speak, we even see it on social media, when they comment on it, they attack you, that you are not a politician. Because people are using what? Emotion. And that's my last point, actually. That our leaders, President Mnangagwa and the President Chamisa of Triple C, must help to build national cohesion, because this country has got too much toxic now. You see, if anyone speaks about, to say, a register to vote, without saying vote for who, and the example is Baba Harare. If go and look at his Twitter, he said register to vote. He never said vote for who. But the attacks which are there are dangerous. So even if I am attacked, I won't take it to the heart, because when you speak on social media, you must expect that. But I would think that leaders should be concerned, because it will go down to how we implement our policies, because there's no cohesion. So I would think that our leaders must speak positive sentiments to make sure that there's no blame game. We still have a long way to go. We have a young democracy. We are Zimbabweans. Look, perfect. We have lost almost 25 years now. From 14 November, actually, 1997, on the Black Friday, when the Zimbabwean dollar crashed, to date, we have not seen peace in the economy. We've suffered to an extent that I was Form 3 then. But I have not tasted the money. But my parents, our grandfathers, the $20 note was the real value. So we need to reflect. We've come a long way. We've lost a generation. With people who are pensioners who are suffering. We have young people who are taking drugs because there are no jobs. So we should not be selfish. Even as we speak, I should speak something which is nation building. And people should not attack because we are talking about having dialogue. Even if they attack, I'm sure one day, I'm sure one day they will see what we're talking about.
There we go. We have come to the end of our program, but let me promise you that in our next episode, we're going to pick it from there and say, how have we fared? So we are going to have another episode next month where we are talking about the economy, where we are checking the pulse of the economy. That is the program we had here on Sly Media TV. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your comments, your contributions. I know you are going to be sharing this program with others. My name is Prof. and let me thank you so much, Professor Mugano, for your time. We meet again on the next episode.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Rising from the ashes, our Zimbabwean celebrities have paved different paths to be the people that we look up to today. Role models, opinion shapers, and motivational figures. All of them have a story to tell. Sly Media TV presents On the Set, a show dedicated to showing you where celebrities came from and where they aspire to be. No matter where you are, local or international, we are willing to share your story on when you rose to fame. So contact us on 0772 863 484 or 0715 015 575 and make sure your story is well known worldwide.
Sly Media TV,